Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I am your host, Jason Osborn, and on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their business and share them with us. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. We use this method about 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, or endless social media posting. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn. That's Jason A. Osborn on LinkedIn. And the link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our special guest is David Amerland. He's the owner of David Amerland Ltd, where he writes books on human behavior and technology and guides C-suite execs on how to use that effectively. So, David, welcome to the show today. And I want to start off by asking the question I always start off with, which is this. If you were able to go back in time when you started your very first business, what's the number one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Well, there's so many different angles to answer that from, but let's start with something basic. I would say to myself, trust your instinct as you move forward. And it sounds very vague in terms of how we should go forward in business. Particularly, we like to work with data. We like to have things which make uncertainty less so and give us a more tangible result. But we'll find that in most cases, what executives call their gut instinct, if listened to thoroughly, and if they're in touch with their awareness of how a business is being run and what's happening around them, it's a very good guide. And these days, because we live in a world of neuroscience aware technology and neuroscience developments all the time, there's a solid body of science behind that, which shows that our brain processes information at a much faster rate and understands things at an intuitive level a lot better than we do consciously. So a gut instinct, what we would call that kind of gut reaction, sometimes, most of the times, if used correctly, is a very good guide.
Yeah. When it comes to that, following your gut instinct, following your intuition, are there any tips on what you do on how to help people trust it more? Because I think maybe I'm the only person in the world. I like to think I'm not the only person that is this way. But one of the things that I've had to learn is oftentimes I feel a gut instinct, not follow it because of, oh, okay, that seems like it goes against traditional thinking, or my brain overthinks it, or I'll talk to somebody else and they give a different perspective. I think we all go through that. And I've just learned over time how to rely on that instinct more. And I think any tips you could give to that for the listeners, I think would be really good, because I think it's a skill that you develop. You know, it's a muscle you train and grow. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is such a key question. I mean, absolutely brilliant. And a lot of executives these days are actually actively trying to develop exactly that skill. So let's unpack this a little bit and let's understand what the neuroscience of the science essentially explains what it is. Our brain processes information. It takes in a lot of subliminal signals, which we don't always consciously process. It helps in the background of it develop a very granular image of what we're actually looking at, whether it's a marketplace, whether it's trends in stock and trading, whether it's culture, whether it's web trends, whatever it is. And then within that, we have a decision to make, which will guide us in a particular direction. Now, the decision process that we undergo is most of the times conscious, and it's guided by perceived logic. And if that feels wrong to us, if we are battling ourselves, essentially, if it feels inside us that it's an uphill struggle, and then we explore a different option and it feels better, like almost a sense of relief, well, there's your gut instinct. So when it comes to weighing decisions which kind of feel counterintuitive and they go against perceived dogma, if you explore the options and those options feel inside you energetically better, they feel like, a load has lifted off you. And essentially it has. When you explore an option that's more viable, even if it doesn't seem to make apparent sense at the time, if it feels better, the cognitive load, the cognitive dissonance we've been battling against lifts, and that feels better. Now, it's very easy to explain it the way I explained it, how we feel inside ourselves when most of the times we try to second guess our own sort of choices. This is where our own skill set comes into play. We have to learn to develop it in small decisions first, and then check in retrospect to see if it was the right one, and then apply it to bigger and bigger and riskier and more risky sort of decision-making points.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that this is you're giving like scientific background around this. One other question I like to ask around this, because it's something that whenever I work with clients, I find it just a common theme, is they'll look at the next steps they need to go down. Their gut will tell them one way, but it feels easier another way. And so they end up going down what feels easier because it feels internally like, as you said, there's an ease on, like, oh yeah, there's an ease, but really it's not the right thing. And so I guess the question I'm asking is, you talked about that ease, but that gut instinct sometimes isn't the easy thing, it's the harder thing, and it can feel like an uphill battle. And I'd love for you to just share your thoughts on that because I'm very curious as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. And I love the way you phrase this. And there is an easy way always, and then there's a hard way. But this is not the same as the energetic load that actually imposes upon us. And I'm going to give you an example here. Let's say you're running a company, it doesn't matter what it is. And now you need to make decisions for the next year ahead. Monumental task in the current situation we live in. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to say, well, what are my competitors doing? Oh, they're doing these things. What do the experts say that we should do? Oh, we should do these things. Then there's always a massive amount of information. Okay, we're going to do these things. That's the easy thing, even if it's hard to implement, even if it's costly, even if it's internally costly, whatever. Why is it easy? Because you don't have to think about it too much. You're copying your competitors. Why? Because in the logic of that, if you don't, you get left behind. You think, well, I can't be left behind. If they're doing it, I must do it at the very least. If the experts are saying I should do this, I should do, X, Y, Z from this. You cherry pick some things and you put them into place. And when things are going okay, that's okay. Because whatever damage you do with this kind of approach is minimal and you can recover from it. When things are difficult, when your business is facing a crisis, when things are really tight, there's not a lot of finance to go around, customer base is up against the wall in terms of the available cash they have to throw you away. When all those things align, that's when you should actually think, well, what should I be doing? And how do you measure that? Well, you think internally to yourself. You need to be aware, what is my business really about? Not what I say it is, but really, what is it actually fundamentally makes it different from everybody else? And that's a difficult question to answer for most businesses. But if you answer that question, then it gives you a pathway to what you should be doing next. And it may not be easy in terms of you can't logically justify it immediately because it goes against what everybody else might be doing. But if it's the right path for your business, that's actually the right thing. And how do you know internally? I'll tell you how you know. If you're doing the right things in terms of what I'm copying from the external world, well, I feel kind of safe in the way that I'm judged, but I don't really feel confident in what I'm doing for my business's future. So that dissonance is still there. This is where the internal awareness comes into play. This is where executives are different from everybody else. You are being paid as an executive to actually bring in that cognitive approach to how you should be running the sector of the business that you're running. If you're a CEO, that's the entire company. If you're a section manager, that's the section you're doing. If you're a department head, it's the department. It's not following the rules. It's not following strictly your job description. It's actually bringing that cognitive awareness that says, hey, if we want to move ahead and gain in future, this is the path we should actually be carving out for ourselves. And when you have that awareness, then internally, that internal battle of what is the right thing to do is easy. And I mentioned right here within sort of inverted commas, because if we place this in a right and wrong situation, it's always right always feels harder to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But when we do it, we feel better. The load lifts inside us, even though perhaps our workload, the number of steps we need to take become more. Whereas the wrong thing to do, which is do nothing sometimes in some kind of situation, or do very little, or just do what's expected of you. It seems easy, that's the easy way out, but it kind of feels wrong. And that's the defining edge. If we talk about an executive class being developed these days, which it is, it's that awareness of the cognitive edge that they bring to the game. That's what justifies their higher salaries, the perks of the job, the status that comes with it. Otherwise, it's just a job and anybody else can do it.
Yeah. I love what you've said there, David, because you said you may feel like it's a quote unquote easier thing, but you just feel like, oh no, it just doesn't sit right. And I think what I've noticed in myself as well, I know that I'm fooling myself into a decision when I know, okay, the other decision is the right thing, as you said, inverted commas there. Even though it might feel a bit harder, I've just learned I'm lying to myself, saying that this is the better way, and that's where I don't follow my guts. So amazing! I love this. I love this stuff so much. I love all the human psychology around it. If you, where do I want to go with this, David? Because I'm just conscious of time, and I could talk about this forever. Okay, I'll tell you one question. I'm interested in this, and then and we'll wrap up here soon. In the growth of your business, what's the biggest challenge that you faced, and what's the learning that you've had from that?
Huh. Okay. For me personally, that was an easy one. I was scaling.
Okay.
I had to make a decision at some point whether to scale the business because the demand was there. People were asking for me, and it's just me in the business. And this is unusual.
Mm,
I used to have a team, I should have, aides and everything else. And certainly when I was in a corporate job myself, I had a team doing a lot of the work. And I decided for myself when I came out of the corporate sort of workspace, not to go down a path where, again, I was responsible for people. Because this is something which I find really draining. It's really hard for me.
mm,
I tend to do it pretty well based on the experience of those around me,
mm,
but it's not easy for me. It absolutely kills me. So when it came to it, I had to scale things. And because of what I was doing, I had two options. The option was pick your customers and do a lot of things for them, or cherry pick the jobs that come and do what comes to me personally, becomes more fulfilling. And I chose the latter. So that was a decision I had to make. And anybody growing a business at some point will come to that. You scale. If you scale, what happens? You have to somewhat drop quality, not consciously, but out of the reality of things. You have a broad team. You have to make sure that they meet absolute basic standards, which are acceptable for what you're doing. But nobody is going to do the job exactly as you would do it, and you're the founder, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So, that's the choice I had to make, which was difficult.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. It goes back to what you were talking about with the intuition side and what's best for you. That's brilliant. Well, David, just for people wanting to know a bit more about you and where they can find information about you, what's the best place for them to contact you at?
You can find me at davidamerland.com. That's my blog and a website, and I put a lot of stuff out there. But if you just Google my name on Google search, all my socials come up and all my recent posts come up.
Amazing, amazing. Well, I highly recommend everyone check out David. Just the quality of what he said today, I'm sure you can feel that. Check out what he's doing. If you want to grow, you have to change you to start off with. And just having this conversation with David, I know he can help you do that. So, David, thank you so much for being on the show. And as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way to close deals that doesn't rely on any of the old traditional methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn, and the link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.